It's a Canberra. Yeah. Alright everybody, welcome back and welcome to one of the quintessential struggle buses of Rank 7 US, the F-4C. If you wanted a plane that just emphasized all offense and no defense, at least it had its own battle rating, that might be what this plane is. So I'm just going to go ahead and rip the band-aid off, get out of the way. This plane has one massive con that basically cripples it, unless you're in a full down tier. The plane has no flares, and when you're facing stuff that has high G or in many cases all aspect missiles, it basically just shuts you out of the fight if anybody even looks at you. And I know, but some of y'all are about to run to the comments and be like, hey, it has Zunies, you can use those as flares instead. And yes, I've tried it from time to time. If you're side aspect like this or frontal, it usually works. You can see right there, I actually went ahead and flared an AIM-9L. But there's two problems with that, very major ones. And the biggest one is that, first of all, if you bring those, you're adding an extra 800 kilograms of weight to the plane. That is a lot, and the plane already isn't the most agile, and we'll get onto that here in a little bit. But secondly, they don't, at least from my experience, really work a rear aspect. So a lot of the time, you're just going to have somebody that drops in behind you and fires a missile. You're going to fire your rockets, drop your throttle, and it's still going to reacquire and kill you. And so for me, at least, in my opinion, in most of the games, you're better off just running without the rocket pods, saving that 800 kilograms of weight, and just trying to prevent getting into that situation in the first place. I mostly went ahead and checked to see what BR I had gotten, and if I got an 11.0 game, then I went ahead and, selected the rockets. In most of my games, however, 10.3 or 10.7 ones, if I did happen to run into something with all aspect missiles, I would much rather try and take the head on and fire, an AIM-9E or an AIM-7D at them, and use that to flare the missile instead. It saves me a lot on weight, and it's still very reliable at flaring the missile. Speaking of, remember how I said this plane was all offense and no defense? Well, the offense isn't particularly good either. You get a lot of it. The big standout thing for the F-4C when you first look at it is that it actually gets access to 4 radar missiles in addition to its normal IR missiles at 10.0. And not just normal radar missiles either, these are CW guidance ones. That means that unlike the R3R or the R530, you can't just press the chaff button once in the head-on and they'll just go straight for the chaff. These will ignore your chaff and they will hit you unless you notch or unless you kinematically avoid them. The thing is, it is very, very easy to avoid them. Now, don't get me wrong, these are good radar missiles for 10.0, and they're a heck of a lot better than the AIM-7C that you find on the F3H. But they're still 10.0 radar missiles, and basically every single radar missile you're going to find in this battle rating, you can avoid just by turning. The same goes for the AIM-7D, which is why you've seen I haven't been getting that many kills with it. Basically, what you have to hope happens is somebody just flies in a straight line towards you trying to get their missiles off, or if they just press the chaff button, assuming it'll go for the chaff like every other radar missile at the battle rating, and it just ignores them and kills them in the head-on. If it's not one of the two, then you basically want to be at very high altitude, because if you're up there, there's a good chance they won't be able to pull hard enough for them to actually dodge. But even so, if you have somebody that's actually aware, like this MiG-21S here, he just pulls a little bit once it's about to hit and it misses. And if you've used later Sparrows, you may be asking, okay, well, if it doesn't have that much energy and it doesn't pull that hard, why don't you just wait until it gets closer to shoot? Well, the problem is that you really can't do that because of how early Sparrows work. The AIM-7C, D, and E all have a similar feature where they don't turn quickly off the rail like an AIM-7E2 or an AIM-7F or M. You can see it was flying straight for almost the entire time that it was burning. So with the AIM-7D, it is better than the AIM-7C. It has a better motor, and it actually starts pulling sooner off the rail than the AIM-7C. It flies straight for 1.8 seconds. For comparison, the 7C flies straight for 2 seconds, and then by 2.5 seconds, it's up to 40% of its pull. Now, that does mean that after 2.5 seconds after launch, the missile can only pull 6 Gs. To hit its actual 15 G maximum pull, you have to let it fly for 4.5 seconds. But the missile only burns for 2.1 seconds. So you have to time it right where it has been off the rail for long enough so that it can actually pull, but short enough that it has energy to still hit. This is easier with the AIM-7E because that one pulls 25 Gs and it burns for longer as well for 2.8 seconds. In practice, that means I usually recommend shooting at about 8 to 10 kilometers at higher altitudes. And you still have to hope they fly in a somewhat straight line towards you. As long as you do that, And considering the matchmaking you've been getting, which I've been getting mostly 9.3, 10.3 games, a lot of the stuff won't have an RWR, and so you'll get a decent amount of radar kills. However, what's going to do most of the work is going to be both your gun, which I do highly recommend bringing. It's a gun pod, unfortunately, but you really need it when you have limited missiles like this, and the AIM-9E. These IR missiles at 10.0 are pretty lackluster. They're not like terrible by any means, but considering that at 10.0 you have stuff like the Magic 1, right above you, you have the AIM-9D, you have the R60, all the other kind of missiles. They're really not great. Essentially, they're AIM-9Js that only pull 11 Gs. Stat card says 10, but it actually lies. There's 11 in the files. They have the same flare resistance, they have the same motor, but they are still 11 Gs. And so essentially, they're only going to hit people that are either flying in straight lines or are slow. However, again, you get 8 missiles. That is more than basically any other plane at this battle rate. It's more quantity over quality, and again, you're still going to have your gun pod to back it up, which you should be bringing. Speaking of, that is the M61 Vulcan. You get 1,200 rounds of ammo. You're basically never going to run out, and this is the best gun for high tier, if you ask me. Good damage, great fire rate, great velocity, plenty of ammo. It's basically everything you need in the gun. The only issue is, again, that it's a gun pod, and that weighs you down and adds lots of drag, and you were already in a hard-wing Phantom. The Phantom is not the most agile plane, especially one that has hard wings like the F-4C, and so most of the stuff that you fight is going to beat you in a dogfight. Your best chance against a lot of these is trying to bring them into like a vertical spiral and bleed them a speed. That sometimes works against MiG-21s, but in most cases, your best defense is going to be running away, because at least in the matchmaker that I was normally get, which was 9.3, 10.3, you're going to be faster than most of the stuff that you're facing. If you get up tiered though, then I mean, you're really not in much luck. Honestly, in terms of ARB, I still would very much not recommend this. It is playable now, I would say, at least from my experience. I've been getting mostly 9.3, 10.3 in this matchmaker, as long as you don't get focused down by a 10.3 or one of the 10.0s that has good missiles, it's usually playable. And I had some decent results. But there are a bunch of other 10.0s and other trees that I would very much rather play. And in the US tree, at only 0.3 higher, you have the F8U, which gets access to 4 AIM-9Ds and countermeasures, and can actually dogfight as well. In the F4 line, the F4E at 11.3 is a very solid pick right now as well. So really, I would probably just skip it. If Gaijin decided to make this an F4D instead of an F4C and gave it countermeasures, I could see it being worth playing then, but without countermeasures at 10.0 with the kit it has, it's just not really worth it if you ask me. It's missile bait, and everybody and their mother knows it, and so half the time you just have somebody 180ing for you and firing a missile you can't do anything about. It's honestly not really noteworthy either for cast. It's fine. You get an assortment of unguided bombs and rockets, and of course bullpups as well. I would recommend using either the 1,000-pound bombs like I'm doing here, or the Zunis. What really kills the plane for me in cast, though, is again the countermeasures. You face a lot more IR missiles than you used to with this battle rating, especially stuff like Strelas. And because you have basically all unguided stuff except for the bullpups, and even the bullpups you have to get close to guide them in, it means that you're stuck in a plane that can't defend itself while also having to get close to the battlefield. If no SAMs spawn up, though, you can carry a lot of unguided bombs and rockets. Personally, though, I would rather have the AV-8C. It still gets CCIP just like you do. It has the same assortment of unguided bombs and rockets, just less of them, but it can land and rearm on the helipad. And crucially, it has countermeasures. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and maybe now y'all will stop asking me to play it on stream. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.